are in for such a treat with this episode. I dare you to be having a bad day and still feel the same way after listening to it. Today's guest is a wildly popular social media figure, best-selling author, business owner, reality TV star, wife, and mother of 3 littles. She lives out her motto, living fully, in all aspects of her life, and is here today to tell us how we can too. She shares about the hurdles she has had to overcome to get where she is today, and her story is nothing short of inspirational. One of the things I loved about our conversation is she really is an open book, and nothing is off limits. If you're in need of a little pep in your step, if you're feeling stuck in a place you don't want to be, even if you just want some extra joy in your life, this episode is for you. So without further ado, let's get to it. Here's my conversation with Mallory Ervin. Well, welcome to the podcast, Mallory Ervin.
Excited to be here. Okay, first off, I've been on a lot of podcasts. What
You're like, this
in
is
the
fancy. We get
world?
fancy for people around
You're
here.
very fancy. Yes, and I love it. I would expect nothing less.
Thank
of
you,
Jennifer.
Thank you. We were saying, because I was like, I always think like, what am I going to wear? Who am I having on? And you're always so colorful, and you love us. I'm like, wearing my colorful.
It's perfect.
Perfect. We kind of match.
It's perfect.
So for those of you who are not following Mallory, which I'm sure most people are, Mallory Ervin, you have a huge Instagram social media following. You are the author of 2 best-selling books. You have a wildly successful merch line. You have a YouTube channel. You were on The Amazing Race, not once, but twice.
3 times.
3 times? Okay. And you were Miss Kentucky and runner-up Miss America?
Yes,
Is that right?
you remember
Okay.
all of
I did. I didn't even look at my
I didn't even
notes.
remember
I was
all-
like, boom, yes.
That's awesome.
You always have. Did I leave anything out, by the way? No?
Oh, my children and husband.
Your
but
children.
you know.
She also has kids. She has 3 adorable little children, 2 boys and a girl, and your husband, Kyle, who show up on your stories every day. I love just following your kind of crazy, wild.
you.
I also love when you post, because I'm sure there are moments that you don't share, and moments of kind of, or just maybe losing your temper with your kids. But for the most part, your life, even though it seems pretty great, also is pretty real. And you're not a lot of fluff. You're fancy for sure when you want to be. Like, you can really do fancy well. But it's like one day you show up and you're so fancy in hair and makeup, and the next day you just rolled out of bed with no makeup. You don't use filters. You're open about that. I like to usually say, well, not usually, always say, I don't like to use filters either. But let me ask you that question. That wasn't a thing. But what kind of made you... Because you're someone that doesn't use filters.
I never really liked. You remember when like the dog filter came? That
Yes,
everybody was
the
using?
Snapchat,
I was like,
yes,
what is going on with these filters? Like, okay, people are using them for fun, and then I realized, no, they're showing makeup routines with a filter on, and I'm like, I mean,
how do I recreate this?
I don't know. I am not 22 years old. Like, this is what my face looks like, and of course, like all of us, or like, you know, most of the people that we know, like, you go to your Skin Farm or your Carrie Hayes or your Dr. Bosman, and you know, do what you need to do. But like, this is my face. Like, I want to show you my face. Like, I think that filters are really dangerous too for like this young generation. And like, it's one thing to use like the Paris filter on Instagram that brightens things up, but it's another thing to use a filter that makes it look like a totally different face.
Like face altering.
I don't love it.
I actually heard it's a plastic surgery trend where girls are bringing
their filter in.
and saying, I want to look like this.
And they're probably like super young.
Yeah.
And it tricks you. Because then you look at your face, that is your face, that is a beautiful face in the mirror, and you're like, oh no, you know?
That's why one of the biggest reasons I stopped is I felt like I would put on a filter, and then if I would switch it to the regular camera, I would be like, oh gosh, this is not making me feel good about myself.
Am I sick?
So I was like, okay, I'm making it. I have a 13-year-old daughter, and I'm like, I'm making that. I can't tell her not to use a filter.
Yeah. And no shame on people that use a filter, but like there are young people with beautiful faces that I'm like, your face looks better than that filter. You just forgot.
I feel like it alters I know people who use filters, and I don't think they look that different. But when I use a filter, I just find it truly alters what I look like. I don't know. I think some people kind of pull it off better than others.
And, you know, back to the real, like, showing that we show the majority of our life. Like, I don't really have any secrets. Like, I really kind of put it out there. And the piece, everybody wants to say the word authentic. And I think that like everybody wants to say that they're authentic, but like we really try and show up and show parenting struggles and show our house when it's messy. And I'm no makeup like on camera 5 of the 7 days out of the week, but that's our real life. And I always want people to follow me and like feel good. I want, when you're watching my story, I want you to feel like good about yourself, excited about your life, like excited about and happy. I want a smile to be on your face. I always tell people, like, if it makes you feel bad when you're watching a story, even if it's mine, like unfollow that person, because social media, I think, can be such an uplifting, inspiring thing. And that's what we try and do. And, does it stink sometimes when we're showing like a parenting thing that's going on? That's a very real thing when somebody like corrects you or says you should do it different.
Do you get a lot of corrections?
It stings.
Get a lot of parenting advice?
No, but you get some.
Yeah.
I have a really positive following for the most part. And I don't get a lot of hate and I don't get a lot of like correcting and stuff like that. But you do get some. And it just makes you like question something that is yours. Parenting, I wish there was a manual because I would have bought it.
I can't even imagine parenting online for everybody else too.
It's tough. And it's tough to know, like, do you show your kids? Do you not show your kids? Like, how is this? I don't know. I don't know the right thing to do, which is why I'm just doing. And I hope that, and then you just alter and adjust like as it's going. And, we've talked about parenting before. I remember talking about like, my oldest son is 5. Talking about that online and being like, I don't know if I should send him to preschool or kindergarten. And you were the first person to send me a message. And you were like, Mallory, I feel so passionate about this that I'm not sending you a direct message. I'm going to text you.
I texted you. I was like, I feel like I need to tell you this.
Yeah. And like, there's so many things, like you put out your struggle like that. And then you were one of the people that helped me make that decision. And that's such a positive thing about social media and revealing the in-between and the almost. And I'm not sure what to do here because it can help you go in what I believe was the right direction.
Yeah. And if you build the right community, then that's important. Did you always, how did you like just one day say, you know what, I think social media is going to be my thing. I'm going to start recording myself.
Yeah.
How did you get into that platform?
I had done, like you mentioned, I'd done Miss America and I'd done The Amazing Race. So I'd always been like a public person too. Like I started singing when I was 7 years old in this tiny town that I grew up in.
And you are a beautiful singer. I mean, I've never heard you. Have you actually recorded a song? Because I've only ever heard you just sing online. You just randomly break into songs.
I like growing up, I always thought that that's what I would do. I always thought I'd be a country music singer. And then after college, I won Miss Kentucky right after I graduated. And like it opened a lot of new doors. And it sent me in a different direction. And then not only did I did Miss America. In 2009, I won Miss Kentucky. 2010, I did Miss America and 2 seasons of The Amazing Race, which is, if people don't know what The Amazing Race is, you start in America, you go around the world, you're racing for $1 million. It's like 12
you did it with your dad?
2. I did it with my dad.
Yeah,
you've got a daughter. So like picture Ava and John. Like it just, so I loved TV and I loved like speaking and I loved all the different things.
How old were you when you did Miss Kentucky and Amazing Race?
25-ish, 26-ish. And so it opened different doors for me. And as you know, like if you read my book, like after that, I was like on top of the world. Yeah. I had, grown up in this tiny town where I was like a star in our hometown. It's like the smallest, most amazing community. And, I was the little singer and everybody was so proud of me. I was like the little thing, And after I did Miss America and The Amazing Race, and I was 26 and I felt like I'd achieved all these big things at this young age, I started putting a lot of pressure on myself.
Yes.
I was already like a natural born perfectionist and leader. And I was the oldest of my 4 siblings, but I was also the oldest of 23 first cousins that grew up on a farm together. So my grandparents lived in the middle and like all of my aunts and uncles lived around us. And it was this amazing childhood and way to grow up.
Yeah.
But when you're the oldest and you're the example and you have a talent and you just start to put pressure on yourself.
Did you feel pressure put on you or you just naturally felt it?
From like the praise and just the recognition. And it was a good thing in the beginning. It was never something that crippled me. It was something that empowered me. But I became defined by it. It was who I thought I had to be to everyone. This is tale as old as time. People have heard it so many times from people. And it was always an amazing thing. But then at 26, when I'd achieved all these things and I was on my own, and I started to get to a point where I felt like I couldn't top what I did, the last thing that I did. And I started to feel like people would be disappointed if I didn't do something that was public, forward-facing, and like that they could be proud of and cheer me on for. I started to feel less than. And I started to feel like not myself. And over the next few years, as I was really struggling to like find the next thing and do the next thing and figure out why I wasn't able to do the next thing, I then got in trouble with prescription medication that like a doctor had prescribed me. I didn't think it was going to be an issue, and it became one.
Was it like to numb?
It was to do more.
Feeling?
You know, that it was a stimulant to do more and be more and stay up like all hours of the day and night trying to do and be. And then I couldn't sleep because like I was on that medication. And then I got mixed up in sleeping pills. And what happened in my life, I always thought like, I'll never tell anybody about this. And it'll be something
how long did that
always
last for?
Like a few years.
Did it
and then I went to
cripple your daily
treatment.
life?
Yes.
Okay.
In the beginning, it's like a wildfire and you feel great and you feel like, oh, I can do more. And like, I'm on my way to the next thing.
Did people know around you?
You know, in the beginning, they didn't, because I was always still a high achiever, as so many people
So
are.
you were functioning.
Yes.
Yeah. Well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Really well.
Achieving.
I was doing great in the beginning. And then like as addiction is to people who have that tendency, you know, the thing that once is like this thing that lights a fire under you and helps you is like becomes this wildfire that like starts burning your life to the ground. And I almost lost my life to it. And I don't think that people realize sometimes that like prescription medication can bring you to that point because you're under the care of like
a physician.
Professional.
Yeah. So she must be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it became something that it didn't need to be in the end. And
you met your husband, right? During that time?
Yeah.
You had met him, but it didn't work out at the time.
I mean, I was I was a
Yeah.
shell of a person. I'd always been this like bright and vibrant and happy person naturally and like doing all these things and making people proud and like doing the things that I loved to do.
Right.
And then it's like, you know, addiction steals your soul in a way that people talk about like the physical ramifications of like active addiction and that it's like destroying your body and like you know, all these things. But like also it just steals, like it's just stole the person that I was from me. I felt like a shell of a person.
Did you think you were ever, like, did you just think you were just going to keep going like that? Did you see an end to it?
I knew I would die.
You did?
I really did. I knew that if I continued down that path, that because my body was starting to shut down, and I had doctors being like, "I don't know what you're doing, but you're gonna die." Like at some point, if you keep doing this, my blood pressure was high. I was like at risk of a stroke. I was having all of these. My vision was starting to black out. I weighed like 90 pounds. I mean, my body was shutting down, and so you know, I can remember during that time being like. No one in my family had ever dealt with anything like that. And I was not the person that anyone expected to go down that path.
Right.
So no one looked at me and was like, something's wrong. It's probably this. They looked at me and they were like, I don't know what's wrong with her, but I hope she snaps out of it.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, anybody that's dealt with addiction in any sort of way, like in their family or knows somebody, like you just can't.
Right.
At a certain point, you just can't. You need professional help. So luckily, my mom was like forethinking enough to be like, I've got to Google this. Like something kind of happened and they weren't around me all the time. I was living in Nashville and they were in Kentucky. And they were around me this one weekend, all weekend. And they were just like, something is off. Take her keys away. Let's start Googling like what to do. I had an aunt that was a nurse. And that's how my journey to treatment began. And that was like almost 10 years ago.
Wow.
And my book was the first time I ever talked about it. You know, there were a lot of people in my life that didn't know that I'd been through this. And I'd been a person that was existing online. You asked the question of like, did I always know I'd do social media? Like, no, it just kind of happened. I'd been a public person. Then I'd gone through this thing. And then I come out on the other side of it and I'm like, I love like being a public person. And I love being kind of the person that I was before. And so I was thinking of like, how do I turn this into a career? Like I'm a singer, I've done reality TV, I've done speaking and stuff with Miss America. And how do I make this a thing? Well, at the time, I don't know, 6 years ago or so, 7 years ago, blogs were really popular. So I said, I'll start a blog. So I started a blog and social media. There weren't Instagram stories or like any video component. Yeah. So I started like posting images and I had an old camera. I figured out how to do it. I Googled how to start a YouTube channel that I started like fairly closely after that. I knew how to do makeup. So I was like, I'll do makeup tutorials, which quickly went into like video blogs, which were called vlogs. And it really snowballed
And
for
you're
me.
sober at this point. Do you use that word sober? It sounds
I don't know.
weird when
Sometimes I
it's...
use it, sometimes I don't.
Yeah. I mean, you were past the addiction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And on the other side of it, and I didn't share that story, but like, here I am again, like, let's utilize this amazing tool that is social media. And I turned it into a big career. I started podcasting, and then I wrote books, and then I have a merch line. And I really rolled with social media as it rolled out. As there was a new feature available, instead of being intimidated by that and
you just went for
looking the other way, I just was like, let's do it.
Yeah.
And now I'm, I support my family with it. And I have 4 employees, and like, my husband was able to, he had a big valet business in Nashville that he closed up shop like 4 years ago to come on and like help raise our kids while we started all these arms that were all provided to me because of the beauty of social media. Yeah. So I'm very grateful for social media, and I think there's a lot of positive things in it. But that's kind of how my story started. Yeah. And then like, a few years into it, as I felt like I was showing this shining life on the other side, I would get DMs and messages being like, I wish that I could have a life that looked like yours. And I would always respond back to, I choose the way that I live. And I went through this really like big struggle in my life, almost lost my life, blah, blah, blah.
But nobody knew.
And people were like, what?
Yeah. You struggled?
When? What happened? So I realized like I have to tell this part of my story. And I didn't know how it would be received.
Did friends know this part of your story?
Some did.
Okay.
But I would say it more in like a flippant way of like, well, I don't drink. Like I used to drink and it was too much. And like, because drinking was a part of it, but that only came later. Like, used to, like, I don't take prescription medications anymore. I didn't say like, I went to a treatment center for
rehab,
almost 6 months. Like I didn't use those words and I didn't paint the whole picture.
Right.
So I felt like it was time to paint the whole picture. And I'm glad that I did. Whenever I was shopping like book deals in the beginning, I had an amazing literary agent. We had so much interest in like so many different books. And I'm a person that was showing recipes and beauty and like party planning and all these fun things. And so like they were like, let's write a lifestyle book first. And some people would be like, let's do this book first. And I was like, I think I have to do the real book first and tell the story and tell the...
and you really do. I mean, like you don't leave anything out. It is...
I tell the whole story.
The whole story.
I don't have any... I always say like, I don't have any secrets. Like I really...
You can just go forward because it's just right out. That's why I said like, sometimes I'll say to people like, is there anything you don't want to talk about? And you're like, I mean, it's all out there. So
it's all out there. Yeah.
It's all out there, which is what I think, though, people, you made a post. I remember really just being moved by it. I'm not sure if it was your anniversary or it was Kyle's birthday, but you wrote about where you had been.
Yes.
And where you got to
what
now.
Was it? Well, it was Valentine's Day.
Oh, it was Valentine's Day. Okay. And you talk about how you had met and you kind of sabotaged it almost. And then when you got back together and, just kind of the road that got you. Yeah. I think a lot of people look at your relationship and just think it's perfect, it's happy, perfect family. Yeah. And I remember like looking at the comments and so many people were like, I never knew this story. And thank you so much for sharing it.
And it wasn't necessarily that I keep those stories from people, but...
If they'd read your book, they would have known.
Yeah. But also, like, people say things in ways that make people think, well, that it wasn't that bad. Like, you say, well, we go through our things, or like, we go to therapy, or whatever it is that people say about their relationships. But like, I was like... I think it's a redemptive story, my story with my husband. And I also think that there are a lot of people who think because they've been through the knockdown, drag out, because they've, almost called off their wedding, or because there were, times that they broke up, or because they're, whatever it is that they've been through, that like their relationship isn't the shiny relationship that they think it's supposed to be. Right. And I mean, mine and my husband's relationship now is really great. Like one of the, I'm around a lot of people that I see, a lot of relationships. It's one of the best ones that I've seen. But Lord have mercy, in the beginning, we broke up 3 times. Like it was like a fight for what we have.
So how did you because there are going to be people listening going, wait, how did she have one of the best relationships she has seen?
Let me tell the story, because I've never told it, I don't think, on a podcast. Because in a very, like in a nutshell. Yeah. So, I was in active addiction. I met my husband. He had gotten out of a long-term relationship, like just recently. I don't think he was ready for a relationship. I don't think I was ready for a relationship, but like we had this love. Yeah. I was very much towards the end of my active addiction.
You're like late 20s?
Like late 20s. Okay. And like I said, you're a shell of a person, but like I was still who I was, but you're in psychosis sometimes and you're just like out of it sometimes. And, I just wasn't who I was. But I think he could see through that I was a person that he loved. And I could see even through the fog of my addiction that like there was something there. So we're together in active addiction. We're breaking up, just so many like things, and this was like right before I went to treatment. And the final straw was like, there was one night that I used to live on Music Row and he lived in the Gulch. And he would always come, he had this Jeep, pull up and pick me up. And like we were going to dinner or something. And this was probably in February. I went to treatment in March of 2014. And I got in the car and he looked at me and said, I just can't do this anymore. I can't marry you. That's what he said. And like we hadn't even really talked, I don't think, about like marriage.
Yeah.
But I think that's exactly what he felt. Like, I cannot marry a person like this because I was just like unstable. And like, I got out of that car and I still lived with my sister. I walked up to like our condo and I shut the door and I leaned against the door and I just like slid to the floor and just like crumbled to the ground. That was the last thing that I had. My family was starting to not want to be around me. Like I was kind of isolated from my friends. I didn't have any like work opportunities because I was just like, it was all crumbling. And that was my last thing. And I can remember my sister saying to me, like, when I say like devastated, I could not stop crying. It was not like a normal breakup. Like people have devastating breakups. I've had them. But it was like my life is over kind of thing. Not so much because it was because I'd lost him, but it was also because like that was just the last thing that I had to live for, I felt like. And my sister said to me, I can remember, like, I feel like you're going to make yourself physically sick, like give yourself a chronic illness from sadness, because she'd never seen someone that sad and that devastated. And I went to treatment in March. Like this is kind of where the spiral began and it just got worse and worse. And I went to treatment in March. During the time that I was in treatment, you don't have your cell phone. And Kyle had started like trying to call me because he's still feeling like he didn't know I went to treatment. Nobody knew. Know. No, nobody knew. And he kept trying to call and couldn't get a hold of me. And he kept seeing my sister out at bars and my family wasn't telling anyone. And he kept saying, "Where's Mallory?" And my sister would say, she's busy doing something. And he was like, okay. He'd see her again. "Where's Mallory? Like, how is she?" "She's fine, And it was like the third time that he saw my sister at this bar. I think it was at Rebar. I don't know why I remember what bar it was at. And he was like, "Where is she?" And she was like, I don't know why I told him, but she was like, "Kyle, I've been lying to you. She's at a treatment center." And he broke down in tears at the bar.
Did he know?
No, he had no idea.
But did he know you were an addict? Did he know you had a problem?
Okay. But I mean, he had there is no way this would have entered his mind.
Yeah.
And he left the bar and ran home to his house, like on foot, crying, devastated. And he's like, that's the night that I knew, like something shifted in me. And like, I knew how much he cared because he was devastated.
Yeah.
And he knew I didn't have my phone, but he kept calling and like trying to reach out. And it's 5.5 months later and was just devastated by that. And so whenever I got out, I felt amazing. And I was like free of everything that I wasn't with the same friends. I wasn't obviously like doing the medication that I felt. I was like a new person, but I still felt drawn like to him. And he would reach out, and it's almost like we dated like two different people. Like he dated a different version of me. I dated a different version of him too. Yeah. And like we fell in love in active addiction. We fell in love after active addiction, and like it's just been an amazing relationship. Because we fought for that. He didn't write me off as like, well, this is the person that it was. We already tried it. Like, it was just it's a redemptive story, And
do you think you would have been as successful in your marriage
had we not gone through that? No. Mm-mm. I think the harder it is in a marriage and a relationship, and the more you go through together, the richer the relationship can be.
I often say that to John because we moved to Nashville, 23 years ago in a 1-bedroom apartment with rented furniture, and our baby slept in our bedroom. And, I say to people all the time, I mean, I vividly remember being at the rent office with a baby on a hip, asking for like 2 more weeks and, making up an excuse why we couldn't pay the rent. And, for many years, it was very hard. But when I look back at that time, I don't remember being sad.
Yeah.
I remember being so happy.
Yeah.
I don't love him more now that we don't have those exact same struggles that we did then. Mm-hmm. And, I don't know. I don't know if we would have been in that same place if we hadn't gone through all of that and still known you can be fine.
And it makes you appreciate like what you have, like whether it is like financial stability or whether it's like a home or whether it's just like a rich, great relationship. I know what it was like to like be holding my breath every time you're like with a person because you don't know like, is this about to be it? Or like what kind of problem is going to arise today? Or like the knockdown, drag out, not like physical fighting, but like the breakups, like, it makes me appreciate what we have now because I remember what it was like before. And I always say to people, no matter what's happened, I think in your relationship, like a second chance is like, you can have an amazing relationship, like giving someone a second chance. I do believe people can change, but I very strongly believe both people have to want that and both people have to work for it because we did work for it and like came to this point because not because only one person wanted, to fight for it. It was both people. And I really believe that like people see a lot of shiny versions of love stories on social media and it hurts people's like visual representation of like what love is supposed to look like.
And even truly, if you didn't have social media, even before social media, you go into church and you see a perfect couple or you go to your friend's birthday party or maybe you were someone that thought your parents' marriage was great your whole life. Yeah. And you come to find out maybe it wasn't so great. So you talk about, I wanted to ask you about for parenting, because you talk about a lot what got you to that state of addiction and the overachieving and the perfection and being validated. And I wanted to ask, I'm going to read something you wrote, and then I want to ask you about you raising your own kids, because now you're the mom that's setting the standards. You wrote, a perfectly healthy activity can become an unhealthy attachment if we are driven by an unhealthy motivation, seeking power, control, comfort, or approval. Then any good thing can turn bad. Shiny objects can stunt our growth. So how are you raising your kids in what I feel like is this world right now of excess, right? We are able to have anything on our doorstep by 6 p.m. And we live in a world of like overachievers and they go to school and the awards for the best this and the awards day. How are you going to raise, or are you already doing it, your kids to grow up that still to be the best they can be, but is there a healthy balance?
Yes. Well, I will raise them, obviously, with my experience with the shiny objects. For me, it was approval. It was recognition. It was being the one that was on stage. It was, they're proud of me. They're proud of me for this. Like those were my shiny objects. There are different shiny objects now. There's this whole online world that now these children have to represent, or most of them represent themselves on. Yeah. There's this, I grew up in the country. I did not have the 40-minute access to anything. And I'm a person that has always really valued wisdom from people that are older than me. I always like laugh at, there's so many 20-something-year-olds giving life advice on TikTok. And I'm like, that's awesome. But did you ask your grandma?
Yes.
Like, I mean, that's awesome.
Yes.
Like, whenever you set it to music and you put the picture of the ocean and her holding the baby, of course it evokes an emotion. Yeah. But like, does she really get what she's telling you? Yes. Like, it sounds pretty. And I encourage people always to, your family has been through this, ask them. But I grew up on a farm, with my family there, without much access to the outside world. Yeah. And, I think that wisdom of our elders is a really powerful thing that a lot of people don't tap into, that I do tap into, and I wish people would do more.
We need
There
like
is no-
elderly people to start more Instagram accounts with wisdom.
I wish, but they ain't got time for that.
No,
like
they're like,
living their
that's
lives.
silly.
They don't
Yeah.
care. Don't you
But
wish
it
we were
would
like
be
that?
great.
But you know, there is no elder that we can ask about raising children in the world of social media, in the world of such excess, in the world of instant gratification. So we are the generation that has to figure it out on our own.
Yeah.
And I sometimes don't know the right thing to do. And I think when you don't know the right thing to do, and when you don't have someone to ask that you admire the right thing to do, you just have to make the best decision. But then you have to check in with yourself and with your children and with your husband by looking at how it's working out. And you have to alter your course. And I think that a lot of people, they think this is the way we do things and like we're going to keep doing it. And then their child's acting out. Like my middle child right now is like acting out. He is such a middle child. And like he ran out the front door of our house at 3 a.m. Like why is he not scared of the dark? Like, what is it? What is the discipline working for this child? Do we need to like go in a different direction? So many people, because we live so fast nowadays and we're always watching something every second we have free, they don't think about their lives. They don't reassess their lives. They don't think, is this working for me? Is this working for my child? Is this working for my marriage? And so for me, the way that the things I decide, they could be on a whim. This is what I think will work for us when like I said, I don't have someone that I can ask or I don't have a clear answer in my head. But then I always try and like think about, is this working for us? And alter the course. And I think that's what makes me a little bit different in the way that I do things is I really try and I try to live intentionally, and people are always like intentional living and, you know, all this stuff. And it's like, what does that actually mean? I think intentional living and like living fully, it's like living congruently. It doesn't always mean like everything is happy and good. And it just means like, is this working for me and my family? Like, am I feeling good? Is this the life that I wanted to live? And if it's not, like changing it. So that's how I make parenting decisions. And I also try not to like beat myself up over when things are not going right and be like, you know, I'm a bad mom.
You have a good way of showing that online, that you don't beat yourself up.
Yeah. Well,
you kind of will make a joke, make it lighthearted about it, because it is lighthearted. It is lighthearted. It's really not the end of the world.
And parenting is like such a funny thing. Yeah. Like it's just the things that you go through with these kids. It's just, all you can do is laugh sometimes. But I also think that on social media, it's very easy to connect over negative. It's very easy to like share this is so hard and like being up with a newborn. And I always try to show like the positive parenting too, because having kids and like being a parent is also, you know, there's so much good in it too. I just think it's easier to connect over.
Yeah. And there's a lot of people who just want, how hard it is. Yeah. It's almost though we just got back from Europe.
Yes, Amsterdam. Where'd you go? Amsterdam.
We did go to Amsterdam, but what I noticed more, so we were in London and Paris first.
Paris, that's where
Paris, what I really noticed, my biggest takeaway was the people there. Everyone just seems chill. They're not moving at a rat's pace. Nothing is to go.
Yeah.
Like stopping.
Because they got time.
Stopping to have coffee it's an event in your day. Like it's something you do for yourself. It feels sometimes like here that there's people you talk to who it's like you have a conversation with them and all they have done is tell you how busy they are, how stressed out they are, how hard everything is. And I don't necessarily think that they're looking for sympathy. It's almost like it's their badge of honor. Like, look how good I'm doing in life. Whereas it seemed I was very aware there, that's not a badge of honor to people there. You need to reevaluate because that's not good for you.
It's a constant thing for me, trying to slow down because I have a million different things going on. And I used to be defined by like my work. And I know people don't call doing reality TV and Miss America work all the time. But like when I was Miss Kentucky, I worked for the Department of Agriculture. And there were some days that I woke up at 3:30 a.m. I would exercise. I would be out the door by myself, speak at one school at 7:15 at the morning assembly, the next school at 8:15, the next school at 9:15. It was a hard job, all the while training for Miss America, which people might think, oh, a beauty pageant. Like, no, there is an interview portion. Like it is an intense thing that I'm proud that I did. But it was a hard job. And like, I busyness is something that like I used to thrive off of. And then in my active addiction, I realized like that I'm going to die at this pace and with these medications also, but this pace of go, go, go. And it's just no way to live. Yeah. And I don't want like my kids to just remember me being like in a tizzy all the time. I don't want to be defined by my work. And it's very hard because my work, same with you, and my personal life are married.
Intertwined. Yeah.
And so it's very hard, but I constantly have to reassess and reevaluate. I have to give myself days off. I have to give myself afternoons with my kids.
Do you do that? Do you ever take a social media break?
I try to, but like I like social media. It doesn't make me feel like anxious and too much. I also, because I'm very authentic and natural, when you see a lot of stories on my page, I film a story in Instagram and I post it.
Right.
I don't film
You're
a
not
story,
thinking about it.
Edit it. Think about it.
You just post.
It doesn't take a lot of my day and my
just
time.
on a whim.
I remember like I was with a photographer in 38 and she was like, oh gosh, you're posting
You've already
in
posted
the app? Like, I didn't like.
Wait, it's live?
You know,
What's happening?
Yes. So funny.
Do you do a live? Do you do lives?
Yeah, I do lives.
Do you? I don't
I'm
do
afraid
lives.
of what Kyle's going to say half the lives. So
Oh, yeah,
like,
that's true.
Sometimes he's a loose cannon.
But I think that's what people like.
Like, I cannot waste my life living 100 miles an hour. But I always like busy and go, go, go is my go-to.
Yeah.
Kids have made me slow down. It makes me happy.
Yeah.
I feel a lot of
If it brings you joy.
I feel joy from what I do, and I like it. But then, like, I reassess. So we got a new house that's larger than our old one, and I was like, great, we'll all work out of my office. I've always run my team. Even though I had a million things going on, I was doing the books and the podcast and the YouTube, I keep my team very lean. I've never been one of these people online that had a team of 8 people. I value a small team. I'm only going to hire an employee like when there's a role for them. I don't want like some huge team of all these people to manage. I don't want to manage a bunch of people. So I hired a full-time employee like a couple of years ago. It changed my life. It was great. Then I hired my sister-in-law. And like those are my 2 main employees. And I just hired a girl to kind of like help with some content stuff. But I didn't have a person. Like we were doing all this on our own. I was answering all the I am very involved in what I do, but it brings me joy. So I have an office in my house. We reassessed though, because now there's too many people coming in and out, and I've got 3 young kids that now notice like it's time to get an office space. Right. I didn't want the overhead of an office space. I don't want to be like having all these employees in this office. Like I'll never be a person that has that. But it was time for like personal life and separation of work and family to do that. So
you make adjustments based on what's best for your family from the bottom up.
Yeah, and if they're hopefully they're right, and if they're wrong, like I reassess.
Yeah. So before you wrote a book about lifestyle and all the kind of fluff, if you will, like the shiny objects, it was important for you to tell your story and put it all out there and have people know who they were talking to. So you wrote your book called Live Fully, which was on the New York Times bestseller list.
It was on every single so it was like 3 on Wall Street Journal. It was 3 on Publishers Weekly. I can't remember the Times, and like it still gets me because I sold so many books, but it's the only one that I didn't make.
So you did? Is that the one you focused on though? The one it didn't make?
Yeah, because that's like it was a shiny one, and I'm like, everybody's like, yeah,
the other ones are shiny too.
I know, and
that's your achiever in you.
But I still have something to look forward to, and like a goal, and it's being like runner up has served me well. Like in my life, I was runner up in Miss America. Had I won Miss America, I wouldn't have been able to do the Amazing Race. Yeah. Had I won the first Amazing Race, wouldn't have been able to do the All-Star season. Had I won the second one, like I think that always have something to like strive for and hope for is a great thing when you're an achiever, especially one like me that just wants a goal and like a All right, so you wrote a book, Living Fully is what it's called. Can you just give us a little snapshot of what it means in a nutshell to live fully? Your definition? Different. So I love the phrase live fully. I love the phrase living fully. Like whenever we kind of were trying to decide what to name this extension of me, but there was kind of a brand. And I thought of like the way that I live life and the way that I've lived life and the way that like I want other people to live life and how I would describe what I do. I was like, live fully. That's perfect. Like whenever I was talking to like the person that was helping me with my branding, that was like, now I like own the trademark for Living Fully. It's what my podcast is called. It's what my merch line is called. Like it just really describes the way that I live perfectly. And you've heard it a million times, but like this is it. Like everybody in this room, like we've only got one life. Yeah. we're living it. And I think so many people are living their lives and they just feel like okay about it.
Yeah.
They're just living it halfway. Like, they think maybe in the back of their mind, is this it? Like, I thought it would be better than this. Like, they think all those thoughts, but they don't like find a way to live that fullest life. They don't find the way to living fully. And so part of living fully for me was what I went through and learning that this great, amazing life doesn't only include the good, it included the bad for me too. That brought me to the shiniest, most amazing life, going through that terrible time in my life, almost losing my life and going to a treatment center. It taught me like this deeper, richer way to live. It also made me not fear adversity. And it made me, not hold my breath and not bury my head in the sand when something comes along, because I knew what came out of it on the other side.
Yeah.
But like living fully is just continuously like choosing to live your life above this just fine, this is the way that it is, way that we tend to live.
You
sometimes.
just said I'm fine is the new
rock bottom. Yeah, I hit a real rock bottom, like almost lost my life, drug addiction. Okay. But I think the new version of rock bottom is
that's actually rock bottom.
Like,
that's actually rock bottom.
This is okay. Yeah. Everything's fine.
But
everybody
I'm
else
fine.
around me is fine.
It's like that's not. Yeah.
It's okay. Like, as long as everybody in my house is happy, like, okay, this is the way I'm going to live my life. Because when you hit a real rock bottom, there's red flags blaring. You're going to lose your life. Somebody steps in and you get help. But when you're that version of fine, where it's like silent in the back of your mind and where you just feel kind of sad about the life that you're living, but you're not going to do anything to change it, I think that's the real red flag glaring, and I think that that's a rock bottom too, because that's the person that doesn't change their life. And that's the person that like goes to the grave, like with this just okay way to live. And I hate that.
Do you think some of that comes from the guilt of, it's fine, I thought it would be better, but it's fine. And it's fine because I have a roof over my head. My kids are healthy.
I think that's part of it.
I could be as bad as Susan down the street.
And
who am I to complain?
Is great.
Yeah.
And like, look at you and I. Like, we have these amazing lives, and there's somebody that may look at our lives now. They don't know about the going and asking for the rent. They don't. Now they know the story about me being in rehab. And like, I also, whenever I was first starting my business, I had absolutely no funds to start. I was borrowing my friends' clothes, and I was asking boutiques if I could like trade and shoot and things. They don't remember that part of the story though. They see this part of the story.
Right.
And I think that perspective is a really amazing thing, but also like, this is your life. Yeah. And like, look at your life and how you feel is valid. Like, even if there is someone that's worse off than you, like, find a way to help those people, or like, change the perspective of your life, but still like, don't let that keep you living like this mediocre life. Like, I don't think that's how God meant us to live our lives.
Right.
Like,
it's like we're all worthy.
Look at what we've been given, and you've been given an opportunity to live a bigger life. Yeah. I think everyone has.
Do you ever find yourself getting trapped into the comparison game on social media?
I have not struggled with that as much as some people have. I was always a little bit different on social media than a lot of other people, though, and I always kind of stayed in my own lane. Okay. But I also I was a public person before social media.
So you were always kind of that person.
Yeah, and like, I think a lot of people got into social media. They'd never been like a public person before, so they were looking at other public people of like, how do I do it? And I just had already done it, and I think I looked at myself as myself. I also like had competed in Miss America, where like it's a very high competitive environment, but also the girls in Miss America, they really do compete with themselves. Okay. It's not like catty competing with each other.
I was just going to say, they weren't catty. It wasn't like you hear those stories of like the backstage sabotaging their like dresses or whatever.
And there are little bits of that, but I'd been through an environment like that. So the things though that maybe, I think that, I have a friend, Jamie Kern-Lima. She wrote the forward to my book. She's the founder of It Cosmetics, like self-made billionaire.
Yes, I love her story.
Yeah. Brilliant. Yeah. Like, it gives me chills talking about Jamie, because I feel like she is just such a wise person. I'm so grateful to have her in my life. Some of the greatest wisdom that I have gotten in my life has been from her. She's just like one of those people. And she always framed comparison as like a distraction, like from your path. And so that's how I look at it. Sometimes I get distracted by other people and the way they're doing things. I don't compare myself and think, well, I'm less than, and I'm not doing it like they're doing it as much, but I do get distracted by it. And I think, should I do that? And it's like, no, you shouldn't do that. This is what you're doing. Like, and it's great, and keep going. So it is a distraction to me sometimes, and I try not to be distracted by it. But I think there are so many people that deal with comparison, and it steals their vision from them. Everybody wants to say comparison is the thief of joy, but I also think it's it's just the thief of your vision and your personal power of your space on social media. So I think that if you are following a person that makes you feel less than, examine yourself and see, like, what do you need to change in your life to feel more than? But also stop following that person.
Are you intentional about who you follow on social media? Yeah. Do you follow a lot of people?
I follow a lot of people, but like,
do what you do, or do you have more like cooking stuff or house stuff? Or
I do, but like there are people that I watch that like make me feel good. And those are the people that I follow. A lot of people that I like don't watch their stories. Like maybe I watch certain people's stories. There's certain bloggers that when I watch them, they make me feel good. They make me feel happy. Yeah. They make me feel like excited about the things that they're doing. Yeah. And those are the people that I continue to watch over and over.
Yeah. And even if they're not, there's some people I follow, and I know in the back of my mind, like I know I will never farm my own land, have 8 chickens, have homeschool all 12 children.
Those are people that I follow.
Right. But like, I'm aware I will never do any single thing they show me on social media.
But you like following them.
And while I'm watching, part of me thinks I might. Like there's a small part of me that goes, one day you might be this person, or you might set a dinner table as elaborately as this. I know that's not true in the back of my mind, but it still brings me joy. It doesn't make me say I'm a terrible host. Yes. I can't believe I sent my kids to school. Yeah. It doesn't make me feel bad. And I think that's the difference. People, like what you said, you might not ever be that person, but they still make you happy to follow.
Yeah, it's
make you feel good.
Yeah. It inspires you. It's pretty to look at. It's fun to watch. Yeah. It's but I will say for comparison, like I don't struggle with it in the realm of social media, but with this homeschool, like what you were just describing, like I do sometimes like feel nervous that I'm doing this wrong. Like, is it good to send a kid to camp for 4 hours? Yeah. Is it good to do a Mother's Day out program, or do I need to like be a homestead? I mean, I think that also though comes from a place of the way that I grew up. And I grew up.
Were you homeschooled?
I wasn't homeschooled, but like we were in the middle of nowhere the way that we grew up. We didn't go. I didn't have like anything delivered to my house like ever until college. Like we were really like country fresh kids, like, and it was such a beautiful way.
That's a new. Is that an actual term? Country fresh kids.
I don't know if it is or not, but
I like
that's
it.
How I would describe our childhood. And I think that part of that, it doesn't come from comparison so much to these like homeschool influencers. It comes from like, was the way that I grew up right? Yeah. Or is it this way? Yeah. But I live in a city with my kids. My kids are not growing up in Morganville, Kentucky. My kids are growing up in Nashville, Tennessee. And it's different here. Yeah. But I do question, if there's one thing that I question in my life, it is that thing that like, do you do is homeschooling better, or is real school better? And it's just, that's hard. That's a hard one that I still haven't like figured out. Yeah. And we are doing
and you're learning. You're just starting.
Private school. You're just starting. But Ford is going to like a private school that's very like, they're very kind. It's very nurturing. It's a sweet school. It's a Christian school. That's the one that we picked. And I went to public school and private school growing up. Yeah. But like, this is the one that we chose, and this is the one that fits with our family. And I hope we're making the right decision. But sometimes I watch those like on the land parents that do that. And I feel like,
should I be an on the land parent?
But I'm the sole provider for my family.
Yes.
Like, one parent has to work. Yeah. Like, you don't just have money on your doorstep. Like one parent. And I like what I do.
Even if you decide to send all of your kids to school and keep them in the whole way, even the moms you will encounter at school doing the exact same choice you are doing, you will still find yourself comparing how they're parenting their kids. And even if it's not something you're intentional about, I think as a mom, you're often put in these situations, whether it's on a group me text or whether it's a kind of sly comment at a field day or something. If you missed something because you were working or you weren't working enough, and so I think it's, for me, been very important to have a great group of girlfriends.
Yeah.
I mean, I have so many multiple group texts that are, for different ages of my kids. That is not something I'm going to say publicly on the group me for the entire grade to read and be judged at.
Yeah.
But I can say it to these 6 other moms who I know instantly get it and aren't going to judge me when I say, I can't believe we're on day 4 of a snow day. I really need a break. Because there are some moms who would say,
oh, I'm having a great time.
I love day 4. Like, I wish we never went back to school. And then I go, they're not saying to me, you're a terrible mom for feeling that way.
But
I
you
just feel it. And I think, why don't I feel that way about having my kids home? So that's what I mean. It's important, I think, as you go, to surround yourself with other like-minded mom
good advice.
friends that aren't on social media.
I'm not there yet because I just have a child going into pre-K.
Yeah.
And Mother's Day out is a different ball game because it's like a couple of days a week. They're there for 4 hours, whatever. It's not that much. But yeah, I think that's the one thing that I continue to question and I hope I'm doing it right. And you know why though? It's because I care. It's because we care so deeply about our kids.
You could not care.
I think that maybe I don't compare on social media that much because I do care, but that's why I'm the person that films myself in the app and posts myself with no makeup and a cracker on my face. It's not to give this false sense of authenticity. It's just because I don't care if you see me this.
Well, and it's working for you. It's worked for you.
And
it's what people like.
That kind of stuff because hopefully it doesn't make them feel less than. When I watch bloggers or influencers, whatever you want to call them, show up in a full face of makeup every day at 7 a.m., I'm who's watching your kids? How'd you put those eyelashes on?
I know.
What?
It's a lot. It's a lot to keep it up. Yeah.
My husband watches our kids. We have someone that helps some with kids, but not a lot.
Yeah.
We probably should have more help. I sometimes wish we do, but that's something I feel guilty about. That's just a me thing because I don't feel like that way about other people that have help full time. I'm great, good job.
I do think we worry more about how others are judging us than they actually are judging us.
Yeah. I agree.
Which is all of that. Okay, talk to me a little bit about, you speak about it in Living Fully, and then in the next book, which is called All In, which is more of, would you say kind of practical guide, workbook almost?
Yes, it's like a workbook. It's like a guided journal type workbook. It's like a book that you would give someone as a gift.
To live fully.
Yes.
Help you on your way.
Yes.
On your way to live fully, which I love. I went through it. I wanted to ask you to speak about manifestation. You talk about that a lot, and you talk about your vision boards. And I wanted to ask you to just kind of talk about your belief in manifestation.
Yes. So I want to preface this by saying I'm a little bit different because I'm not a universe, new world type thing.
Correct. Yes.
I'm very religious.
Yes.
I'm Catholic.
You're very open about your faith.
Traditional. Yeah. I'm at church on Sunday I'm receiving the Eucharist.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that a lot of people think that you being a person of faith and believing in manifestation and visualizing cannot go hand in hand. When I wrote Living Fully, and I'm a Christian publisher, I wrote the part on my faith and the manifesting visualization chapter together because I truly believe it's hand in hand. Yeah. And I think, listen to all the things that they say in the Bible, ask and you shall receive. And I think that in our faith, we learn, I think we are supposed to be people that are visualizing our lives as positive things. I think it's like a prayer and fast forward.
Yeah.
I think it is showing what you want your life to be, this one precious life that God has given you, what you want it to look like. It's intentionality. It is living your life to the fullest and honoring all the gifts that God gave you and is going to give you. That's what I believe. I believe it is truly an ask and you shall receive thing. It is getting intentional about the things you want in your life. And Jennifer, if I showed you the vision boards that I had done 8 years ago, 6 years ago,
does a vision board
4 years ago
have to go along? Is manifestation in a vision board
I think
Is it a
visualization
two-part
and
thing?
manifestation are two of the same words.
Okay.
Manifesting is just like your visualizations coming to fruition.
And when you say you need to manifest, is this like a little bit every day? Are you sitting down in your mind and being intentional about it? Like, how does one, if someone is just driving home from work right now at a job they maybe don't love, and we're saying, just go home, just manifest. You need to manifest.
Okay.
What is that looking like for them when they get home from work today and they're ready? They're like, I'm doing it. I want to live fully.
I want this life.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so I think that the traditional way that a lot of people, and that's why I wrote All In, to kind of give you a guide to think through, like, what is it that you want to visualize? You have to have a clear picture of what you want in your life. And you have to actually like know the things that you want to be able to put them on a
but like in big
board
sections, like is family a section? Is money a section?
Yes. And I've done vision boards like different ways. And this is kind of like my refined way that I do vision boards. And I'm kind of like, you hear those people like that have always been people that meditate, and they were like big meditators. And then like 10 years down the road, like they say, I don't sit and meditate for 45 minutes anymore. It's kind of like me with vision boards. I visualize all the time now. When I'm having like a bad off day, I will go. It's so weird, but I'll go. I just did one yesterday. I'll go into the notes section of my phone and I will literally write how I want the afternoon to go. Like, I can't believe like things turned around. Like Shepard started acting good. Like I got this deal. It finally closed. I did. I will write it like it's already come true. Wow. And people think that that's like such a funny thing to do, but it is really a powerful thing. So I think the easiest thing for your lay person that's like, I don't like the life that I'm living. Right. I think a lot of times they just aren't thinking about like, what are the things that you want next? There is proven scientific facts of like neuroplasticity, which is your brain's ability to change. But there is so much out there about, you have to like know what you want too. Like you have to prime your brain, and like you have to know that opportunity that comes in that like that can attach to that thing that I glued down to that poster board. I think that a lot of people think, oh, like on January 1st, I sit with my friends and I get a white poster board. I go through one magazine and I think, okay, I think I want this and I want $1 million and I want all these things. Like there needs to be more thought to it. You need it's not just an arts and crafts project. It's not just an arts and crafts project. And it's also not something that you glue things down and you put it up and you say, okay, here, where is it? Yeah. You know, you have to work for those things to happen. But if you wake up in the morning and if there's this like time like right before you fall asleep where if you're looking at your phone and you're comparing yourself and you're feeling bad and you're scrolling things, that is a really powerful time for the brain. If I'm putting on my pajamas in my closet and I'm looking at my vision board, the last thing that like
is that where your vision board is?
It's usually in my closet.
Really?
Right now, I've had one that I don't know if I'm going to have a fourth baby or not. I cannot decide. Okay. I know, like, once I tape that down to my vision board,
so that is not on the vision board.
It's sitting on the vision board. It's not taped.
You just have one vision board going at a time?
Usually. But I have all my old ones, like, stacked up in my
why
attic.
your closet? Why do you keep...
Because that's the place that I'm in, like, in and out.
Yeah, and it's private.
It's private. Yeah. And there are things that, like, I used to do them a lot different than I do them now. Now they're a little bit more metaphorical. If I'm feeling like this year I want to, like, let go of, like, something in particular. Last year I had this image of, like, balloons flying in the sky. People don't know that. But there is one of the things that I do think you need a visual, like, exact is, like, if you have a financial goal, I think that having that written on there, and people are private about that kind of thing.
You would write a number.
I would write a number.
You would write a number. Like for what you want to make in the year?
Check, and I would write if I wanted a brand deal to equal this. Yeah. If I wanted this much in my savings account. If I wanted like whatever the goal was, that would be a specific goal.
So it's a mix of both photos. Like if you want a beach house, you could do a photo of a beach house, or you could write something. Yeah. Also, it can be anything.
It needs to like evoke an emotion that like when you see that you need to like visualize and like see.
You do, and you do give examples in All In, kind of how to start and how to do it.
It's going to be a very personal experience for people, and like you know, nowadays, do I believe that like my vision board has to be perfectly done on January 1st, or can it be sitting in my office like halfway done and I'm working on it for like a longer time? I visualize constantly now, so like I don't have to practice it as specifically as I always did.
Do you add to that vision board through the year?
I used to a lot.
Okay.
Now though, because like busyness and like overworking is a thing that I try not to do, I don't fill up my vision board, and I like white space to be on there. So I used to fill every single inch of it with something, but my life was messy and chaotic, and there was like so much going on, and I felt overwhelmed. So then I said, well, I've got a visual representation of overwhelm right here. Like, I need to remove some of this in my next versions of my vision board. So now I try not to add because it fills up all the space.
Yeah.
But right now it's like incomplete because there are things that I haven't made decisions on. So,
and you're aware that you're going to put it on.
My vision board is so like powerful.
How many years have you been doing it?
A lot of years. Like, I can't remember.
Would Kyle do one?
No, he doesn't really do one.
Will you do that for your kids as they get older?
I think that if they want to do, like, just like Kyle, I'm not like, do a vision board. You know, whatever he does works for him.
Family activity.
And everybody sit down and get your glue stick out. I think I have a story in my book, in Living Fully, about when I was like 10 and I was in a talent show. And it was like an adult and kid, like mixed talent show. There were adults backstage rehearsing. I was 10. And all these other kids were like wanting to go get cotton candy and like wanting to go win a goldfish. And I can remember as a kid, there was the box of trophies. And I can remember just sitting there and just looking at the box of trophies and looking at it and seeing myself on stage as a 10-year-old child, visualizing myself. I didn't know what visualization was.
Yeah.
I can remember, like, I just thought about that. And I won. Like, I just thought about that. And I was focused. And I was like the kid that like no other kids were thinking about, that picturing themselves on stage with that trophy. I do think that like I've always done it.
Yeah, you've always done it.
And it's been a part of my life always. But also like there's prayer mixed in my visualization. And there is like...
There can be both. It's not a
at the
contradiction.
End of that note that I wrote yesterday of like the way that I wanted my day to go, at the end of it, I say, like, thank you, Jesus, for, like, making my day go. It is very much tied.
Have you ever seen the speech Jim Carrey gave at the commencement?
Yes, where he wrote the check to himself of, like, for the mask and, like, the...
No. So maybe, yes.
He's a big visualizer.
Yeah, so I actually went back and I looked it up. The part I was thinking of, because when I was thinking about the vision board and the manifestation. And I remembered seeing it years ago when he had done this. So I went back and I searched it up. And he tells the story about when he was in the second grade and he had a substitute teacher from Ireland. And it's funny, he remembers it so clearly. And he said, she came into class and she said, guys, if I want something, I just say a prayer for it and I work for it and eventually comes true. And he said, well, we didn't have any money. He said, so I went home and I said a prayer that I wanted a bike. And it was very specific, like with the handlebars he wanted. It was called a specific bike. And he said, like, okay, I'm praying for this bike. This is what I want. And 2 weeks later, his mom says, you won exact same bike in a raffle. One of his friends had put his name down. Okay, so hold on. I wrote down...
I believe it.
Right. So he says...
I haven't heard that story. That's awesome.
Okay. So he says, basically he was like, I'm going to give this a try. I'm going to pray for a bike. And he gets the bike. And then he said, as far as I'm concerned, it's letting the universe know what you want and working towards it while letting go of how it comes to pass. Your job is not to figure out how it's going to happen for you, but to open the door in your head. And when the door opens in real life, just walk through it. And then he said, oh, and why not take a chance on faith as well?
Yeah.
And I thought, it's so true. Because I do think a lot of people think, I can't just like throw it out to the universe. I don't know who I'm asking this for. Or they think, well, I did pray and then nothing happened, right? Which is the thing about the person on the island. And I sent you a boat and I sent you. And I just thought that was really, really...
It's powerful. That's really cool. I haven't heard that story. And you know what I like about what he says too? Because I also believe you can't just put all these things on this thing and put it in your closet and it's just going to come true. That's not how I visualize. Yeah. But if you say, I want to make more money and you're in a job that you hate, if you don't take the steps to potentially look into another career or into another job or like start... How are you going to get to that? Like, you have to do some of the work. Yeah. You are not in charge of figuring it out. Like, I agree with him. Like, that's the faith and the, letting it go. But, like, you do have to take steps forward. Yeah. You also have to feel good. You also, like, have to... The majority of my life, this girl came up to me at the farmer's market on Tuesday night. she came up to me and she's like, I'm so sorry to approach you. And I'm always like, why are you sorry to approach me? I'm not Beyonce. I'm just a normal person. I get so upset when people send me a DM. They're like, I saw you, but I didn't say anything. Please say something to me. Like, you guys gave me my career. Like, you guys watching me and buying the things. I'm grateful for that. I want to meet everybody. And I'm just a normal person. And she said to me, I've been in treatment. She went to treatment for some things like OCD and some different things. And she was like, I watch you because when you say you're happy, it inspires me because I believe you, because you're one of the only people that I believe. Like when you say you're happy and it gives me hope because I don't feel that right now. But I believe you. She was like, are you really that happy? Do you really feel like that? And I could confidently look her in the eye, and knowing that she was a person that was struggling with me, I would never be a person to like be dishonest to a person like that. And I was like, yeah. And she was like, I also love that you're not ashamed to say that, and you don't feel like you have to like hide that. I don't remember the way that she said it, but I was like, I appreciated her saying that because like I do share the part of my life where like I didn't care if I woke up in the morning, but now I feel joy. I feel really happy about my life the majority of the time. Wasn't always like that, but like I don't feel guilty sharing that because I'm also sharing like the other side of that. And I do believe that good things happen for people that like feel good, and you're like making the most of your life and you're giving to other people and you're feeling good. And I hate it whenever I hear people say, well, it must be like easy for them because of this, or it must be because that's not feeling good. Like that's not attracting good things to your life if you're constantly saying that about it.
Well, and I'm sure some people look at your life and think, well, must be nice. She lives in a nice house, or she has a great marriage, or she has healthy kids. But you pointed out in your book too, that often when we maybe look at someone else online and think, oh, I want what they have, if they've just rolled up in this new, car, it's not actually the thing we're after. It's the joy. It's the feeling of joy that they're exuding. Right.
Yeah. I think it was Tony Robbins that's like whenever you say I want a lot of money, it's not that you want a bunch of like piece of papers with old dead men on them. It's that you want that what it gives you, like what the life that it gives you, and like yes, you can look at maybe me or someone like me or you and say, well, it must be easy. But someone else that I see that has a lot of joy and happiness in their life is my sister. And I write about my sister and her story and what happened in her life. She lost her first child. She did not miscarry. She had this baby that fought for its life, like that she had to be in the hospital, a full-term
during
baby
COVID
by herself because her husband and her, they could not be in this hospital room. If there's not a more traumatic experience, if there's a more traumatic experience to go through, like I don't know it, like I saw that firsthand in that, and she feels joy.
Does she have not a secret, but I don't even know what the proper word is, a secret, I guess, advice for how she feels joy, again, after something so terrible?
She says a lot of different things at different times. But one thing that she says is so true, that's such a cliche that you don't know unless you've been through something like really terrible, is that like God will provide for you like what you believe you can't handle. She's like, I always thought I would die if he died. I always thought like I would die of grief. I couldn't go on. And she's like, I was given something to go on. And she believes that. And I hear that from people. I have people on my podcast that like have been through really terrible things. And they always say like some version of that. Like you think you can't make it through, but you always do. But like on the other side of it, I just believe my sister like chooses a happy life and joy. And she refuses to live her life being defined by that tragedy. And she refuses to live her life low and sad and, just crippled her whole life by it. And I think it is hard sometimes to pick herself up, but she always chooses that.
Yeah. And it is about choosing. She do a vision board?
She does. And she like didn't do it a long time because she was like, I feel like a witch.
Well, right, because it does seem like a little hocus pocus almost.
That's what, and she was one of those people that was like, this is weird. And I was like, just try it. What do you have to hurt? Like,
Well, what do you have to lose?
And this year she
Your
did
husband
one.
like makes fun of you.
Yes,
I'm going to go home and do one, and then we put it in the closet, and John's going to be like, "What is all this stuff?" Like, you don't need to worry about it. It's coming true in my world.
Yeah, my literary agent said that she did one for the first time, and she went into her bathroom, and her husband had glued like a washer and dryer on there, and he's like, "Well, it broke. We need a new one, so I was going to put it on your list."
It's just your list. Yeah,
these husbands are like,
that's
funny.
your list. Yeah,
but yeah, she did one this year for the first time. She's like, whoa. Because some like major things happened.
Okay, I'm doing it. I'm definitely doing it.
Do it. What is it?
I've never done
try?
it. Yeah. Well, and I used to say this all the time, and John would be like, "Oh, please." The only thing I ever truly used to say out loud was after we had 3 boys and we didn't know if we were done. Well, I was not done. But I would say to John, "I know we're supposed to have a girl." And he'd say, "How do you know? You don't know this."
That was one for me.
And I'd say, "I just do.
That was one for me.
know. I know she's missing. I just know it." And people would say, "Well, if you're supposed to get a girl, you're going to get a girl." And I was like, "I just know it. I just know it." And we did. And
well, it's funny because there are so many ways that I like refine the way that I do vision boards. And so I had Ford, I had Shepherd, both my sons, and I kept putting a sonogram, one of their old sonograms, on my vision board. And I kept getting pregnant, and I kept miscarrying. I'd never miscarried before. Not to say that like my vision board made me miscarry in like any way,
but
shape,
I do
or
think
form.
that's an important part of your story because I think, like you just said, a lot of people probably will look at your life and think it's easy to live fully when everything works out perfectly for
but
you.
I also like lived fully when it was not working out.
Yeah, that's true. Right. So you had your 2 boys, and you said you got pregnant very easily, had normal
pregnancies.
easy pregnancies.
It was fine. I had gestational diabetes and some other things, but like, no, they were fine.
And then you miscarried 4
times in 1 year.
Yeah.
Like over and over and over. No one knew what to do with me. All the doctors I was seeing would like blame it on a different thing. It was a very challenging time. And I knew also that like I was meant to have another baby. And I kept on putting these pictures of sonograms on my vision board. Sonogram. I kept getting pregnant. And I was like talking to Dr. Tara Swart is this, she's a medical doctor that now is like really big into visualization because that neuroplasticity piece is one of the things that she studied. She was a psychiatrist. She was a psychiatrist.
Okay.
And like prisons. And she was like, I was fascinated by the ability of people's brains to change. Even these like criminals, she was like, I was just seeing this thing over and over in my research. And she said, I just started seeing this like manifesting and visualization piece that was very in the clouds. And I wanted to attach it to science because I saw that there was something to it that was scientific. So she is a person that's done a lot of research and then written books on this. And she and I became friends. And she was looking at my vision board. I sent her a picture and she was like, don't put the sonogram on there because you're getting pregnant. She was like, put pictures of your 2 boys and what you want. Do you want a girl? Put a picture of your 2 boys and then put a picture of a little girl in there. And I did that. And then I had a girl. I'm not saying that it's only that, but like that made sense to me because I was getting what was on the vision boards. I was getting pregnant over and over and over. And then I just kept like losing those pregnancies. And she was like, hey, shift this a little bit. Yeah. And it was very interesting. Like you can continue to refine the way that you visualize and the things that you want. And it's rare that something doesn't come true that's on my vision board. But if it doesn't, like I know that it either will eventually or like it was not supposed to come true for some like other reason that I couldn't see when I put that thing on my vision board.
Because I think too, like living fully, how do you live fully and then not get knocked off track when something doesn't go according to plan? The miscarriage, your sister losing her son.
Well, I always remember like any failure in my life, any runner-up, any like almost die, have to go to treatment, it has always led me to something like so much brighter and more vibrant and a better life on the other side of it. It's not just like okay, I made it through this thing. You know, like it's like it made me who I am. Like and so I think if you can like tap on past wisdom, like I feel like any person that you talk to that's had any form of success has been through major adversity. Yeah. So if you haven't been through major adversity yourself, like I don't know like what rock you're living under, and that's good for you. But like look at all of the people like the Oprahs and the Tony Robbins, all the people that are like famous for these like incredible, they have been through major stuff. So like when I get knocked off course and that thing happens, the way that I live fully, I know something better is about to come on the other side of it. I truly believe that. So it makes it to where like I'm able to get through that thing. I'm able to do the things that I need to do to get through it the best way possible. So it doesn't knock me off course. I'm still living the way that I know I need to live.
Yeah.
Because I know like what's coming on the other side is something awesome.
Yeah. And I think that comes with wisdom too. I think
life experience. Yeah.
And like you said, if we had, our elderly grandpa living in our house that could, and I often think that way with teenagers. Teenagers are unable to see past that minute and the next day. And I think there's a lot of teenagers who something bad happens to and they lose all hope and they're unable to see past the next day. So I love that. Okay, so part of living fully too, you talk about, I don't know if you actually use the word self-care, but part of it is taking care of yourself. And whether that is feeling good about yourself or exercising or going on a date night or going to lunch with a friend or going to get a massage, whatever that looks like for you, there are going to be a lot of women who are going to say, I can't live fully. I don't have a minute. My entire life is spent taking care, of my kids. I could have lived fully before I had kids. Maybe I'll live fully when I'm an empty nester.
Yeah.
How? Because you're in it. You're doing it.
Yeah. You just have to find those little tiny like pieces of time. You're going to have much less time available to you. Like when I have a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 11-month-old. Of course I have less time. And I'm starting a new e-commerce business. I have 4 employees to manage. I've got a lot of things going on. Like in 15 years, will I have more time? Yes. But like, this is my life right now. And I'm living full. I have to live fully in this time in my life. So like one thing that we shifted, like Kyle really, really wants to do like a date night, like as often as we can. And I was like, how in the world? Like, when is the time? Like, we don't have the time. We don't have the babysitters. Like, we don't. And so we just made it a priority. Yeah. And we were like, okay.
We're just doing it.
We're doing it. Yeah. So how I did that in that instance was found sitters that were like looking for extra money because they were going to take a trip to Europe. And I scheduled them like a month in advance. And we put it on the calendar. And that was the only way to do that. Had we started a Wednesday morning and been like, oh, well, we just need to fit a date night in. You're never going to live in the life.
Yeah. You should put it on your calendar. Plan.
You have to plan.
Like you're planning your kids' activities.
Yeah. And, there are ways to do, I don't love the word self-care because I just feel like we are a very selfish generation right now. And I just think that like we need to get back a little bit to others' care sometimes. But like you do have to take care of yourself in this season of life being a young parent. The way to do that though is like choosing in the moment sometimes like to give back to yourself. I guarantee you if every single woman that's like, I don't have the time, looked at their phone and pulled up whatever part it is on the iPhone that shows how much time you spend
you're like,
on your phone,
I do have the time.
They're going to be like, someone has had my phone.
Yeah.
This is incorrect.
There's no way I spent this much time looking at someone else's life.
It's automatic. Take some of that time that you spend looking at someone else's life and like get in the bathtub and put a mask on your face or walking 30 minutes on a treadmill or around your neighborhood and choose that instead of that. That's the way that you make time for
Well,
yourself.
And you talk a lot, which I actually really, really loved your spin on it about leaving a legacy. And that when most people think of the word legacy, they think of after you die, what'd you do kind of in your final days and how much money did you leave or what was your position at your company? But really your legacy is just what you're doing every day. How are your kids going to look back when they grow up and remember you? Is it going to be tired, stressed out, and yelling at them all the time? Are they going to remember the clean kitchen? I like to think so, but probably.
I know, it's true.
Oh, my mom, she kept a great kitchen.
It's a hard pill to swallow.
Oh, man, our clothes were folded so nicely. Like when I fold them, I vision them thinking about this one day. No,
my
it's
mom
not.
had like all these home edit containers with all of our
yes.
crowns.
Do you remember how organized mom was, guys?
Rainbow.
Yeah, no, I know.
Yes. So I think that came from the family that I was raised in. My dad was extremely intentional on family legacy, family story, coming together as family. We all lived on the same farm. We were together all the time, but they were very intentional about continuing to tell our family story, continuing to tell of like all of the times that my grandpa almost went bankrupt, like pig farming and doing a country store and doing the mobile home business and all of these things. Yeah. We were a family where they talked about legacy to little kids all the time. And that was very like forward thinking, I think, of my dad. I'm very grateful I grew up in a family like that. That's where my like obsession with legacy came from, because even as kids, when we were like, what, I don't know what my legacy is. Like, I'm 8.
Yeah.
They were talking to us about it. It was ingrained in our heads. And so that is the reason that I started thinking about legacy much different, because I live my life in like what I call like legacy mode. It's like, how will people remember you now? Not at the end of your life. Like, yeah, of course, you're going to have more time to talk about and think about your legacy, but like, don't save it to when you're about to, when you're about to die. Yeah.
How will they think of you next week after they met you this week?
This is it. Like, this is our legacy. It's now.
Yeah.
It's really like living, like making decisions based on how do I want my legacy to be? You know, am I going to sit and do these dishes, or am I going to play with my kids, like doing something I don't want to do, playing with Ninja Turtles on the floor?
Yeah.
Will it make us feel better to like do the dishes? Yes, probably. But like, if you're thinking of your legacy, I want my kids to remember me as the parent who was on the floor playing.
I know.
You know, I make decisions based on legacy a lot.
You do? Are you good? Because sometimes I feel like I tried to do that, and then I was like, oh, those dishes, I'd be better if my house was cleaner.
Well, I make the wrong decision sometimes, or like sometimes I just choose like the way that I want to feel sometimes. And you can have a balance, but if you can make decisions more often than not based on like, what kind of mother do I want to be remembered as? What kind of spouse do I want to be remembered as? What kind of person online do I want to be remembered as? If you can make some of those decisions based on like what legacy I want to leave, I think that you are leaving a legacy. And like even some decisions, they're better than no decisions.
I love that. Well, I am definitely making a vision board.
I'm excited.
It's going to be my very first, almost 50 years old, and she's making her first vision board.
You don't have to send me a picture of like what's on it, but like when you have all your stuff, like cut out and send me a picture. That will keep you accountable.
Okay, I think this will be really good. Okay, so what's coming up next for you?
Oh gosh, a lot of things. Which is exciting. I'm so grateful for that. Like, I really am grateful. Like, I wake up and like I say thank you all the time in my head all day long. I believe that I think gratitude is like beating a dead horse, for like a very country saying, like gratitude. I mean, you hear it over and over because like it's really powerful to live life like grateful. I say it in my head all the time. Like whenever I wake up in the morning, and like when I'm at the grocery store, and like when I'm in the middle of so many things, I'm just like, I'm so thankful for this thing that I have, or that I'm doing, or that I feel, or that, you know, is coming. I'm so grateful that I have a lot of irons in the fire. So my podcast is relaunching. I'm starting a new...
It's called Living Fully.
Yes. I'm starting a new e-commerce business that I haven't announced yet, that's launching for holiday, that you know about, but no one else
do know about, yes.
And you're excited about.
I am. It's so excited. And you have your merch. You have done sweatshirts, T-shirts,
hats,
headbands, scrunchies, paper products. Sells out in a hotcake second.
They're so awesome.
They really are. They're but no, your products, I'm saying, are so awesome, and I think that's why people love them. They're fun. They're colorful. They're bright. I think they're a great representation of you, which I think is so key. Because sometimes you see people launching things, and you're like, oh. Never would have visioned you wearing that three-piece suit, because usually I see you in your pajamas. But so I think that also it's on your. Sometimes I hate using the word brand, because it's your life. It's more than just your brand. It really is your life.
Is a reflection of me, and that's how I want it to be. But like my merch is about celebrating life. That's why a lot of it is like holiday themed. Yes, it's about celebrating your life big. It's about Christmas shopping and the Christmas.
You do it around holidays.
30 days before. It's just a celebration of the lives that we're living. That's what it's about. So this is another piece that people will, I know that my community will love and will be excited about. And
your books, we can find your books. You read your books, right? You have Audible books. Yeah, so Living Fully and All In.
I have, you can get these books anywhere books are sold.
We'll put your website and your Instagram up, and people can find you.
Just my name everywhere, Mallory Ervin. And we have, a new e-commerce brand that's opening. We have, the podcast is relaunching. I have a lifestyle book that will be, I don't know when it will be coming out, but that we've started the process of, that will people will be excited about, because it's things that they've asked for. I hope they'll be excited about it. I hope they're not tired of me by the time it comes out.
Maybe some recipes. You have some great recipes.
Like just lifestyle, everything. Party planning at home and recipe. And I am a celebrator of life.
You really are. You really
love
are. Yeah.
living.
Yeah.
I really do. And I
have to say, as someone who followed you before I met you, met you at bar, remember?
Yeah.
Had I met you before?
We've probably met before.
I don't know
we have
if we've met
mutual
before.
friends.
We have mutual friends.
That
when I met you, though, when we really talked outside bar, and you were pregnant, but you hadn't
I
announced you were
was.
pregnant, but I knew you were pregnant, and I didn't want to be that girl that was like, "Are you pregnant?" And then you were like, "No," and I'm like, "Oh gosh, I'm that person."
Wouldn't have cared.
I knew you were pregnant then.
We were talking about cars.
We were talking about. You asked me where I got my car.
Yes.
And but you truly are someone that is not just an online persona. You truly are that nice out in public and to the people that know you. And
thank you.
You really are just a ray of sunshine on social media.
People see what they are themselves. I believe that. That's a very true statement. And you are exactly that as well.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And I think that's why you see that and you reflect that from me, because you are exactly all of that. And you're a person too that people look at and they see a really beautiful life and all these things on the outside, but you are just a genuine, authentic representation of a good mom and spouse and friend. And like, you are also a light. So that's, I think, why you see that.
Thank you.
You don't have to know you for very long to see that from you either.
Thank you.
So thank you for saying it about me, but it is very true about you
thank
as well.
you. Thank you. Well, now that we both feel amazing about ourselves, thank you so much for being here. And I can't wait to see what you do next. Maybe we'll have you back.
Me. This is definitely hands down like the most beautiful
thank you.
podcast setup. And you and your awesome crew.
Yes, I know. I always laugh. I'm like, a woman like you podcast where everybody that works here is a man.
We like men too.
The topics that come their way, they are so educated, but I feel like I'm doing their wives a favor.
Exactly.
Yes, we're just educating them. All right. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks.